Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. Welcome back. Okay, so we made it to Monday morning, and 6 hours ago I promised you that I would find you some crazy for today. Oh boy. Oh boy, did I ever. um, so there's no verdict in this. We don't get the end, but we get a pretty good idea. This is a competency hearing. And you know what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to make this. I'm going to. We don't really need to see all those other boxes lighting up when people talk. I'm just going to make this guy big. Or, if only it were that easy. All right, here we go, guys.
Do you say about special bullets or funny rounds?
I'm trying to recall exactly what I know that he's made statements to me at other points about these bullets that they like erase people's memories or they cause dementia as opposed to actually killing or harming someone physically. I don't recall exactly what he said about those to this, but I assume that's probably in line with what he
Honestly, that's probably the most sane thing we're going to hear the whole time.
said earlier.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right. So, do you remember what the date was when you very first met with Delgado, Mr. Delgado?
Yeah, that's on the front of the evaluation. It's listed as prior interviews, so November 2nd of 22 was the first time I think I met with him.
Okay, and how long was that meeting?
1 hour.
Okay. And did anything stand out to you during that first meeting with Mr. Delgado?
I do remember I was accompanied to see him. He talked about, having this hematoma on his head. Again, this is all on page 9 or 10. And how he wrestled with family members to get that. The bump was noticeable. You could certainly see it. It was there. Other things that he kind of mentioned, he talked about the cartel again. He told me about how he found, various trackers or listening devices around his house or vehicle, which he thought had to do a lot with this sex trafficking ring, which the Greeley Police Department was also a part of. So that there was a lot of paranoid stuff that was being discussed at that point, including things like the FBI being involved.
Okay. And then the second time you met with him was on November 17th, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And how long was that meeting?
I think that was only like 10 minutes. That was a fairly brief interview with him.
And why was that a brief meeting with him?
I don't recall. I don't recall why that was only 10 minutes. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. And then you met with him for a third time on January?
Yes, and the January meeting, again, was more to make sure that I was sticking to sort of my standard interview form, so to speak. Because if we're just looking at consultations and getting some observations of him, I'm not going to structure the evaluation the same as I would if it's, hey, competency is the issue here. And once competency was what was requested, then I want to follow my typical way of doing it.
Okay. And so I want to talk about kind of how you go through the typical ways of you doing it. So when you're starting out your kind of interview with Mr. Delgado, how does that begin? And then how does that kind of progress?
So you just want me to walk you through my standard sort of competency evaluation, how I do that?
If that works for you, I mean, you can keep it more general if you want.
I can do that. I can keep it brief. I tend to ramble sometimes, so please stop me. But yeah, I start out with background information after that notification. That helps, I just feel like, ease people in. You start talking about their education, their family, their work. They get a little more comfortable. Once I kind of get through that, I'll ask them about sort of mental health history, how they're currently doing, ask them if they're experiencing things like hallucinations. Then we move in pretty standard stuff, talking about a mental status exam. which sounds a lot fancier than it is. It's just really to make sure people understand, who they are, what the date is, that they can, kind of do basic attention kind of tasks like repeat a series of numbers, those sorts of things. And then I'll move into the specifics of the what I would call like the meat of the matter, which is the legal issues, right? So asking what different courtroom personnel do, the judge, the jury, the attorneys, and then moving into questions about trial process, plea bargains, sentencing charges, relationships with their attorneys. And that's pretty much what it is.
Okay. I appreciate that. So when you're going through the background, did you ask Mr. Delgado about whether he had any children?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
The first time, I'll just look here.
Was it the relationship with your attorneys, Michael? Is that the part that would get you in trouble?
Here on page 2, he talked about having a kid, a 5-year-old son, but he said he wasn't sure. He just said he met a lady one day and the kid kind of looked like him. And he also said he had a daughter and a son. So it was a bit vague.
Did that match what you would learn from the collateral sources from his talking with his family?
I don't recall what the family said.
Okay, that's fair. And what did he tell you about his substance use history?
With regard to substance use, he reported occasional drinking, reported use of medical marijuana for pain management.
V, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And I think that was all he told me on that date.
Okay, so he didn't tell you anything about any other substances that he used? Correct?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. What did he tell you about his history of head injuries?
And I'm just going to interject for a second. I'm trying not to object, totally fine with leading questions in the interest of time, but I'm just going to ask for clarification. When these questions are being asked, are they being asked about the interview that was done for competency or during the first 3 interviews? Does that make sense?
Yes, I guess I can kind of clarify.
Just because we're going through that report, but obviously it's the 3rd interview. And so I'm just hoping for clarification in the question.
I guess that's fair.
I'll sustain the objection in part, just so that's clear on the record. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. And I'll just maybe clarify my question as well. So, well, first of all, let me back up it for a second. You had talked about your process of coming back for the 3rd time and kind of sticking with your script that you normally do. But did you consider and include all 3 of your interactions with Mr. Delgado when you were putting this report together?
Yes, and so maybe I'll help clarify here. With the background stuff, that was probably collected during the 1st interview, as opposed to the 3rd. When I typically start with a diagnostic interview, I'll say, for lack of a better way to describe it, it's the first half of what I would do for competency, right? So I don't ask all the stuff about the judge, the jury, et cetera, for a consultation or a diagnostic interview, because it's not a competency evaluation. So some of this stuff, background information, was probably collected on the 1st or at subsequent times.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And so this background information, I was asking you about anything that he revealed to you about his substance use. I believe, or no, excuse me, we already talked about that. We were talking about his medical history. What did he tell you about that?
He didn't tell me much about head trauma, except for the hematoma that he had on his head in wrestling. And I think he also mentioned like falling out of a tree or something at some point, something to that effect.
Okay. And do you remember if that matched the collateral information you got from his family about his head injury?
Again, I would have to go through and look through all those interviews. I don't remember noting any big inconsistency with that, though.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm sorry. But.
No, it's okay. But that wasn't a a big factor for you when you were making your conclusion?
No, the head injury piece, was not, again, it's something I want to look at. I want to understand. But I don't think that that's the primary barrier when looking at the big picture. So,
okay. And when you were going through your different kind of steps of the evaluation, you had gone kind of through the different levels to the point where you're kind of asking them questions about, I think did you call it the legal material? Is that what you called it?
sure, yeah.
How was Mr. Delgado's ability to communicate and understand the legal process?
I've never found Mr. Delgado to have deficits regarding his understanding of the process and the legal system. He's a bright man. He's intelligent. He understands how these things work. Anything that he might not have known, I think, was easily remedied with education. And by that, I mean, if, someone, for example, they don't know the 3 rights that we talk about when they give up a plea bargain, I'll offer them some education, and at the end of the evaluation, I'll follow up to see if they remember. With Mr. Delgado, I don't think that that's ever been a barrier in my view. It's his understanding of the system.
Okay. And I want to talk about kind of sources of your training when you're trying to do these evaluations. Does it involve doing any kind of diagnostic process for a mental disorder?
Yeah. Typically, again, like I mentioned earlier, I hope to be able to narrow it down with competency specifically. Our scope's more narrowed, right? We're not typically going to see somebody who's just, they have anxiety, so they're going to be incompetent. Those types of things aren't what we're looking for. Most of the time, we're looking at issues with psychotic symptoms, with manic symptoms, like a bipolar disorder, head injuries, intellectual disability. So you can kind of narrow down that scope in terms of what diagnosis you might need for a comp eval versus like a full diagnostic eval that you might perform in the hospital for purposes of treatment.
Kelly, thank you so much for the star.
My target for a competency evaluation is I need to find what is the mental illness that's impairing their performance on that competency portion. And so that helps me narrow it down quite a bit.
Okay. And I think you had mentioned I think it's a provisional diagnosis. What does that mean?
Yeah, so provisional diagnosis, I use this often because, for example, like a case like this where I don't have, 7 years of treatment records from mental health evaluators or psychiatrists or things like that. It's, hey, I can tell you the symptoms are here, but maybe there's something that moves the needle, for example. And so I'll give an example to clarify that. For example, somebody might have bipolar disorder with psychotic features. Well, the symptoms with that disorder are essentially the same symptoms that you would see with schizoaffective disorder. And so I might offer a provisional diagnosis if I'm not sure which one it is, because there's a difference between the two that's a bit more, involved, where someone with bipolar disorder with psychotic features, they only have psychotic symptoms when they're in a manic state. Someone with schizoaffective disorder, they're going to have psychotic symptoms often, and they'll go through manic and depressive states, but their baseline is sort of psychotic. And so being able to do a provisional diagnosis helps me to say, hey, it's in this ballpark, but there might be some diagnostic uncertainty in terms of, maybe it's in category A instead of category B, without having, a great amount of prior collateral data. Sometimes it's hard to say, 100% it's this diagnostic or this diagnosis when there might be some wiggle room. And so, for example, when a primary barrier might be a delusion, right? That is a symptom of a psychotic disorder. Now, it could be a delusional disorder where, that is the primary issue is delusions. But delusions can also occur in schizophrenia. And what we're looking for are, are there hallucinations that are present? Are there disorganized thoughts, or is it just delusions? And sometimes it's very difficult to tell because all you can rely on is someone's self-report at times.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Sorry for the ramble.
No, that was perfect. I think that was helpful, at least for me. And so you talked about what you do generally. Did you make a provisional diagnosis in this case in particular?
Yes, I think for the first evaluation.
I believe this is on page 14.
Correct. Yeah, the provisional diagnosis was a delusional disorder. And much like I just said, it's, I can't rule out that there's never been hallucinations or other symptoms that might bump him into schizophrenia. So that was why the provisional tag is there.
Okay. And I think you referred to the DSM-5 previously. What is the DSM-5?
The DSM-5 is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. It's essentially just a big book that has the mental disorders that we kind of recognize and the criteria that people have to check in order to hit that diagnosis.
So would you consider that a reliable authority on mental disorders?
It is, yes. I mean, it's, I think we jokingly refer to it as the mental health Bible. But okay. Yes, it is our.
Oh, CJ, you have no idea how much that sucks. Because I think out of everybody, you would have enjoyed the last, how many minutes? 17 minutes. More than anybody here, even though I am very much enjoying this. I feel just like Granny. Is he talking about me? Is he talking about me?
Our book.
Okay. And that's what you utilized when you were going through this diagnostic provision.
Yes, that's what I rely on with my diagnosis. So.
And what does the DSM-5 say about how people present if they have a delusional disorder?
Yeah. Again, so when we think about someone, if we think about sort of textbooks, and I don't mean to narrow down everything or to pigeonhole things, but when we think about something like schizophrenia, we have a lot of disorganization, right? You see the people that are in the jail cells, they're smearing feces, they're ranting, they're rambling. You can't understand a word they're saying. Nothing that they're doing seems logical or makes any sense.
Son of a bitch, he is talking about me. I'm being personally attacked.
Their speech can be, on a spectrum, but, just nonsensical. Whereas someone with a delusional disorder, they actually present pretty well. They can kind of maintain things in life. You see a lot of people who have a delusional disorder where they are able to function, they're able to work, they're able to kind of go about their life like a typical person. But when you get into this one area where the delusion is, that's where the dysfunction is present. Whereas someone with schizophrenia, their dysfunction is going to be more in your face, more global, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So if someone was talking to a person with delusional disorder and not talking about specifically their delusions, how would they present at that time?
They would present pretty typically, right? You might not know that this person is delusional if you don't talk about that area of their life, right? Their delusion. Again, there are plenty of people who can hold jobs, work, and do things like that with a diagnosis like this. Again, something like schizophrenia, where it's more apparent outside of this one sort of scope, is much easier to identify.
And is that consistent with how Mr. Delgado presents?
It is. It's consistent with how he's presented with me. I mean, I've always had very good interactions with him. He's always been very calm and polite with me. He's always been able to sit through an interview and have a back and forth conversation with me. He doesn't, get to the point where he's speaking over, yelling at me or things of that nature. He's always been very, again, like I said, polite and receptive to answering questions or for me to kind of redirect him.
Okay. And then do things change if you specifically start talking about delusions?
Not in terms of his politeness or the way he interacts with me. But the logic piece starts to come, unraveled. And so when you start speaking to him about a lot of these beliefs with, the Nazis, the time traveling, that sort of thing, it's very clear to me that those are firmly held beliefs, that he's not wavering on those, that is his recollection of how things happened. And that is, impacting, his thoughts about this whole process. But again, he will, he'll maybe speak a little more. He'll speak more at length about it, and give me a long story or a longer answer to a question. But otherwise, I mean, his presentation, his demeanor, I would say, is pretty consistent. He's always been, like I said, polite and calm.
Okay. I want to talk just a little bit about your clinical observations of him.
Sure.
So we had kind of talked about you reviewing the collateral material and his statements to police previously. Did he have similar statements to you when you spoke with him?
Yes, throughout the evaluations, throughout the several meetings that I've had with him, the consistent themes have been there. The time traveling, the Nazis, the bullets, the surveillance that he feels like was on him, the issues with the Greeley Police Department being corrupt, those things have been consistent.
Okay. And how do those delusional beliefs kind of commingle with his kind of legal decision-making process?
Yeah, so are we okay that we're getting more towards like my more recent interview with him? Can I speak on that?
We can,
Okay.
if you want to.
It's all sort of coalesced to me.
I mean,
I'll just note that I don't object as long as it's clear that we know what we're talking about, because my understanding has been what we've been talking about is the first report. And so if you're switching subjects, just so we can follow along.
No, I understand.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll sustain that objection. So if we can just make sure now that I have the 3 reports, if we just are referencing, you can just tell us which one you're referencing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it might be later if we just stick with the first report now, just briefly, just because I think it's important to kind of figure out where we came from and to get where we are here. So back in 2023, I just want to ask you about how, in your opinion, his delusional beliefs impact his ability for a legal decision.
Yeah. I mean, essentially he gave me what my opinion is a delusional account, right? That at that point, the victims in the case were part of a conspiracy that were monitoring him. He felt he was in danger. And so that influenced the way he described the situation to me, and how he, wanted to go about his defense in terms of, whether he's pleading guilty or not guilty or things like that. There was no insight that this was mental health related at that time that I recall. It wasn't a, hey, we're, aiming towards NGRI sort of issue around the time of the first evaluation. It was just pretty much, here's what happened, and now we got to figure out how to prove what happened. And that, in my opinion, would be remarkably difficult to do.
Okay. You just touched on a subject that I'd wanted to check on, or I wanted to come back to, but I think it might make sense to bring it up now. You mentioned something about true insight. Can you tell me what that means? Yeah.
So for someone who has a mental illness, what I really look for, and I don't think it's helpful to give generality. So for this particular case, if I have an individual like this who has given me a delusional account and they've been found incompetent and they go down for restoration treatment, wherever that may be, when I do sort of a reevaluation to see, hey, yes, the state hospital or whoever says they're competent, now I want to check on them. Do I agree with that opinion? What I really want to get from this individual is an understanding that I have a mental illness, right? And this mental illness is the sole reason for why I told you what I told you during that first evaluation, right? About the time traveling, about the Nazis, et cetera. That's what I want to get. I want to get some insight that those beliefs aren't based in reality, doctor. And maybe the medication has helped me see that now. that's what I want in terms of insight,
Okay.
right? I want someone to recognize and understand what the difference is between how you presented initially when you were found incompetent and the point that you're now supposed to be competent. I want to see that flexibility of thought. And for me, flexibility is as simple as, you know what? It's possible that I wasn't thinking rationally and that this was not really what happened. You know, even just having that possibility for me takes it out of that rigid delusional belief structure. And that's the flexibility and the insight that I want.
Okay. And I will definitely ask you a little bit about that when we're going into the 2025 eval. But just kind of lastly on this 2023, what was your ultimate conclusion from the 2023 evaluation?
That he was incompetent and that the delusional beliefs at that time were going to interfere with his ability to assist in his defense.
Okay. So after your evaluation in 2023, I know we've kind of referenced it, but did you end up doing a second evaluation of Mr. Delgado?
Yes, the second evaluation, the one from November of 2025, I was asked to meet with Mr. Delgado primarily for the purposes of a mental state evaluation, so sanity or mental condition evaluation by the defense.
Okay, perfect. And prior to that, did you review kind of the competency history between the time you spoke?
I don't want to interrupt. I apologize. Can the witness repeat the last answer? Sorry.
I literally can't watch the video because of the bald head. I haven't seen anything else in the courtroom yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. For the purpose of the second evaluation,
Yeah.
it wasn't, hey, can you go see him for competency? Defense asked me to do, well, to screen for competency, but to also, the goal was to get a sanity or mental condition evaluation done at some point.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I understood the time frame for that answer.
Okay, so prior to that evaluation, did you review the competency to proceed history between the time you had done your evaluation and when you were again kind of coming back on in 2025?
Yes, I reviewed the reports that I was given. Yeah, so my report up through, I guess Dr. Mack did the last report in February of last year.
Okay, so kind of what's new from this report versus the last one is the evaluations and then the records. Is that right? From his time at the state hospital?
Yeah, the mental health records and the competency component.
Okay, and why do you think it would be important to review those previous evaluations before you spoke with Mr. Delgado?
I mean, Mr. Delgado had been, evaluated and treated for a significant amount of time before that, I was able to meet with him again for purposes of attempting the sanity or mental condition evaluation. And so I really wanted to see, what are the other evaluators seeing? What has he kind of demonstrated in terms of strengths or barriers or improvement? So it's helpful just to kind of track what is the progression, because, ultimately the goal is, you get him down to the hospital or to RISE and we treat the symptoms and hopefully that results in a competent defendant.
Okay. And just to make sure we're clear, how many evaluations had been done after you had spoken to him in 2023 before you then spoke to him again in 2025?
I reviewed 4 that were done. It's possible that, they had another one here or there that I wasn't provided, but 4 to my knowledge.
Okay. And I want to just touch on just a couple things in those. Well, let me back up a second. When you're doing your competency evaluation, you said that you reviewed those materials. How much do you kind of craft your questions or evaluation based on what previous doctors have already observed from Mr. Delgado?
For me, because I had the prior experience with Mr. Delgado, my identified barrier that kind of jump-started the competency piece in my mind was the delusions. And so that's going to be where I'm going to look for the most improvement, right? Again, with Mr. Delgado, it's not been an issue of, how many people are on the jury or questions of that nature. It's been more about this rational understanding and being able to move forward with a defense strategy that logically makes sense.
Okay.
But yeah, it's helpful to look at the other doctors to see what have they done, what have they noted in terms of his ability to do that as well.
Okay. And when you were reviewing the records and the evaluations, did Mr. Delgado ever receive restoration treatment for competency?
Yes, I believe he was down at the state hospital in Pueblo for some time.
Was he given medication when he was at the state hospital?
I believe so. I think he was placed on an antipsychotic. I don't remember the specific drug, but I believe it was an antipsychotic medication.
And Dr. Hatfield, would it, if you want to refresh your recollection,
is there any type of employment for antipsychotic med tester? I wonder how well that job pays.
a specific point in your report where you talk about the history there. This is on
For the competency history, probably page 4 with Dr. Wiggett's evaluation.
well, let me just back up. You said you had looked at those evaluations. What did Dr. Janice opine back in February of 2023?
I think Dr. Ort said that Mr. Delgado did not meet with her, but she felt that the refusals were based. The reason for the refusal was due to mental health issues, so she opined he was incompetent.
Okay. And then what did Dr. Nicole Mack opine in April of 2023?
In Dr. Mack's first evaluation, I think she noted similar things that I did, delusional beliefs, and that he was incompetent based on delusions.
Okay. And then just to make sure we're following the timeline chronologically, it was after that Mr. Delgado was receiving treatment?
Yes, I believe after Dr. Mack's evaluation.
I think but I'm not 1,000% sure. I think that this is just a competency evaluation they're going through right now. What I think is he was evaluated by like 3 doctors or whatever. 1 said he was competent, 2 said he wasn't. I think they're just trying to find out if he's competent.
I would have to look at her report again just to double check where he was at that time. I think he was still at the jail. But I don't think he got restoration treatment until he went to the state hospital in Pueblo, which was where Dr. Wiggett evaluated him.
Okay. And then
so if he was at the state hospital, then it sounds like he committed a crime, he got arrested, and then they said, okay, he's not competent. He's just not competent. So they sent him to get restored. And he went to the state hospital and he worked with the doctors. And then he had another competency eval or whatever, and they said he was. And then he had another competency eval and they said he was not still competent. So that's where we're at today. The judge is going to say competent or not competent, except the judge is not, because we're not going to see the whole thing today. We're just going to see what we see.
What did Dr. Brian Wiggett opine back in May of 2024?
He opined that the defendant was competent at that point.
And you, I believe you noted a few specific things from that evaluation. And I'm not asking you to tell me what Dr. Wiggett means, but kind of what was your impression of why he thought he was competent to proceed at that time?
I mean, my impression, just reading his report, was that it was a little bit of wavering, a little bit. I think he mentioned something that there was. that although some of the beliefs were outlandish, Dr. Wiggett couldn't necessarily roll them out as having happened. And maybe that was within regard to like the sex trafficking piece. You'd have to ask Dr. Wiggett more specifically. But I think that he felt that because, Mr. Delgado was able to kind of recognize that people might not believe his statements, that was good enough.
Okay. And did he take a kind of a different approach to determining whether something was delusional belief or not than the other doctors? And this is
Yeah, I'm looking at his on page 4 here. I'm trying to think how to answer that in terms of like a different approach.
I guess really what I'm getting at is how he went about deciding whether these beliefs were actually delusional or not.
I'm not 100% sure of his thought process. I know he said something about delusions versus cognitive distortions. Again, I wouldn't want to speak for Dr. Wiggett and his thought process there. I think that, for me, if you think about sex trafficking, yes, that is something that really happens, right? That's something I think we all know can be an issue. Where it's happening, when it's happening, I don't know. It's some of the other beliefs that I'm wondering if those were talked about in terms of the time travel, the Nazis, and that sort of stuff. But I don't know how Dr. Wiggett split the cognitive distortions versus the delusions in his brain.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I know it's difficult to talk about what another person's doing.
Want a Monday morning quarterback him, right?
Yeah, no, thank you for doing that. But just in your opinion, do you think in your understanding of the case law and when you're doing an evaluation, do you think it's appropriate to leave it up to the trier of fact to determine whether someone's beliefs are delusional or not?
I think it depends. I wouldn't say an absolute yes or no to that question. For me, I think it depends on the context, right? And on the specifics of the case. I mean, ultimately, it is the judge's determination on competency here. But as far as the facts go, and that's I'm thankful is not my job. I think it's difficult. I kind of refer to, and not that I haven't done this before in reports as well, in a sense of like kind of punting is how I would refer to it. It's, there's evidence on this side, there's evidence on this side. I can't really make a good determination, so I'm just kind of going to give up on that determination. That seems to be similar to what I would think might happen in a case like that.
Okay.
For me, again, I think there was a lot of other things to talk about than in addition to the sex trafficking, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I want to move on from that one and just the last one briefly. Dr. Nicole Mack did a second evaluation with Mr. Delgado, right?
Correct.
And what was her conclusion in that second evaluation? And this was in 2025.
Yeah, I think Dr. Mack noted that, or opined that he was competent. I think she
Hi,
felt that
Raven.
he showed some flexibility, if I recall correctly. I think he told her he still believed most of what he was saying, but recognized that other people might not, and was willing to pursue a defense strategy on the basis of that.
Okay. And so when you're doing your evaluation, are you keeping in mind those other kind of doctors' impressions and opinions?
Yes, I've worked with all those folks before. Dr. Mack and like Dr. Torres are some of my favorite people. So I respect their opinions, and yes, I'm going to keep in mind, where they are at and what they are thinking, because I want to make sure that, if I'm the only one that's off base and in left field, then I need to examine why I'm in left field. And really try to support my opinion or change my opinion based on that. So yes, I want to take into consideration what they're saying.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Doctor, are you saying if you're delusional, you need to fix that?
All right. So you touched on this a little bit before when we first got to this second evaluation in 2025. mentioned that you were actually not there to just do a competency evaluation. Tell me again, what exactly were you there to do?
I was there to pursue a mental state evaluation. I think that I've probably frustrated all the attorneys in the room and the court with my opinion that he's incompetent at this time, because I know this case is drug out. The intention was to go in, hopefully see that flexibility was there, and to start working on that as a defense for his case. When I got to the point of seeing what I saw in terms of those delusions still being present, I'm uncomfortable offering an opinion on that, because I think that those delusions are 100% impacting the way he wants to navigate this case.
Okay. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, the competency screening is a kind of a fundamental part of that whole mental state.
Correct. Yes. Anytime we're doing evaluations for mental state, we're going to do a competency screening as part of that evaluation.
And why is that important?
Again, for me, it's an ethical issue, right? I don't want to get an account from someone who's mentally ill and base an opinion off of their account that is riddled with symptoms or delusions. I also want to make sure that the reasons they're making decisions, even though those decisions on the surface seem reasonable, that the rationale for making said decisions is not the product of a mental illness.
Okay. So at that point you're doing your competency screening, do you do a very similar or maybe identical process to a previous meeting when you're doing the evaluation?
Yeah, I ask the same questions. I have the same sort of interview sheet that has those same questions on there. I mean, on occasion I might, skip a question or two that, doesn't seem as relevant. If they give me enough answers on, what the court personnel are doing, it might not be something I'm going to harp on, right? Again, for an evaluation such as this, I know what the barriers were that I identified in the beginning, and I know what those barriers are that I want to have seen him overcome. So those are going to be where I'm going to focus more. But yes, I ask essentially the same questions.
Okay. And when you were speaking to him in 2025, was he actively taking any kind of medication at that time?
I think he was taking Abilify or something like that at the time that I met with him in 2025.
Okay. Do you remember when he started taking those medications, whether it was at the jail?
I think he started those medications during restoration at the state hospital.
And would it surprise you if I told you that it was actually at the jail?
He started taking meds before he went to the hospital?
Well, let me see if I can find this in your report. Give me 1 second here.
I would not disagree with that. I mean, I think he's been receptive to treatment. He's not been a refusal sort of individual. And so, yeah, I think it's possible that they put him on medications prior to his trip to SimHip, because it does take a while to get to restoration.
I'd like to direct you to page 5 of your 2025 report. When you are talking about or referencing Dr. Mack's report, does she talk about him taking medication at that time? This is February 1st, 2025.
Yeah, she wrote that he was not taking medications other than Tylenol.
Okay. So just to clarify the timeline, that report in 2025 was after his stint at the state hospital, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And he was not taking medication at that time?
Correct.
But he was taking medication when you spoke to him later that same year, in 2025?
Yes, he told me he was taking Lexapro and Abilify.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure I got that for the record. So when you spoke to him in 2025, was Mr. Delgado still experiencing delusions at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And how did they compare to his delusions previously?
They were the same. I mean, I think he had, in my opinion, I think he learned what he should and should not mention in terms of what people might not believe. But he's always been willing to discuss those things if you prompt him and ask him.
Okay. So would you, I guess I want to dig into that a little bit. Are you saying that he might, we talked about this a second ago, that the true insight versus factual understanding. Can you kind of talk about whether you believed he had any genuine insight into his?
I don't think so. I think, again, for me, I can ask him a question about, were you diagnosed with a mental illness? He would tell me yes. I can, ask him questions about competency, and I can ask him questions about his beliefs, and he can tell me, people aren't going to believe me. I can't prove this. So therefore, this is my defense strategy. That on the surface is reasonable. Those are the answers we want from him in a sense, right? That on some level shows an understanding of how other people are thinking about what he's thinking. However, when you ask him, down to the core, do you still believe this or not? These are still firmly held beliefs. It's not I think this is possibly mental illness. It's no, this is what happened. There are good parts and bad parts and Nazis and time travel and all this stuff that's related to this case. And he knows that other people aren't going to believe him when he says this. That does not stop him from believing those things.
Okay. And I know you said that the delusions were pretty similar, but I think it's important to go into exactly what he was telling you at that time, because I think it'll help the court make a determination in this case. So what were specifically the delusions that he told you about it?
He spoke to me a lot about how he was immortal, that he couldn't die, that he would use a time machine, and how the family was kind of making him repeat this time loop to the point that he believes he is still somewhere in this time loop. And if he were to be killed, it would just reset the time loop. That's the reason he's immortal, is he can't die. And that, essentially all of this is because he is part of this Nazi family, and the good part of this Nazi family wants him to be their leader. And the bad part does not. And so he thinks that this bad part of the Nazi family has set him up to commit a crime. He's talked about having bullets that don't actually kill people. They just erase their memory or cause dementia. And being in this time loop where he's being set up by the Nazis and the Greeley Police Department to get in trouble so that they can kind of take him off the board as a player of leading this family. But he still believes that that time loop can be broken, and he can essentially act in a different way the next time this time loop starts over to get a different outcome.
Okay. Thank you. I know it's a lot to keep track of, so I appreciate that. How did those impact his kind of concern for his own safety?
He's mentioned to me, several times about thinking that officers at the jail were part of the sort of bad Nazis. He's, seen or at least attributed meaning such as that to officers' tattoos in the jail. He felt like people might be poisoning his food at the jail to try to get to him and harm him. And again, this is all at the behest of this bad part of the family.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any concern that Mr. Delgado might be feigning these beliefs?
No.
And why not?
Typically with feigning, what we get is someone who's going to, really overplay their hand and consistently report all the symptoms, right? They have visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, tactile hallucinations. There are also going to be a lot of inconsistencies over time, right? And that is the one thing that I can say. I've met with him since 2023. His presentation with me has not changed. I don't think that they've seen wildly varying versions of him in other reports either. So I haven't noticed the inconsistencies. I haven't noticed these things. I think that, again, his assertion that he wants to pursue this mental health defense is reasonable and it's self-serving, right? And so for him, even when I'm challenging him on this, to maintain these beliefs in the face of all this sort of adversity, for the chance of now he's going to be paused and stopped again if he's to be found incompetent, that's not in his interest. That's not what he wants. He wants to move forward with this case. So I don't see any motivation or any substantial evidence that that he's faking this. That's not a concern of mine.
Okay. And you just mentioned this. You mentioned that it was self-serving. Does the fact that someone can make self-serving decisions mean that they are competent or incompetent to proceed?
I mean, it's a data point,
Okay.
right? So I think it bodes well for competency. I think being able to express, some of these things, these are strengths for him in the realm of competency. Being able to say, people think that I have a mental illness. People think that I'm delusional. I can't prove these things, so this is what I'm going to do. I think that makes great sense on the surface. But when you break it down and you start pulling the threads on this, which is what's outlined in the third report, the reasoning for making these decisions is based in a delusion.
Okay.
It's not based in, this is self-serving, I have a mental illness, this is what I need to do. It's based in other motivation.
Thank you. Did you kind of recognize any kind of flexibility in thinking for Mr. Delgado in the 2025?
Not that I can recall in 2025. I mean, other than this, again, what I know I keep probably using the same word, but this sort of superficial sort of insight.
Okay. And you talked about pulling on a thread to kind of like go in deep into these things. How did you do that with Mr. Delgado?
And we're okay to move to the next report, essentially?
I'd prefer to stick with the 2025 one. I will get there in just a moment.
I gotcha. Just all this stuff is, especially with these two reports, it's so closely intertwined.
Yeah.
That a lot of the stuff is just going to bleed over in my brain.
Okay, that's totally
And so
fair.
I want to be respectful, to the court here and make sure that they understand where my thought process is coming from. But for that particular point, I think most of the data that is at least, at the top of my head is from that third report for that
Okay.
point.
And we'll get there in a moment. I'll just move on for this one. Okay.
Actually, Mr. Felderbisalo, is this a good time to go ahead and take a morning recess?
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go ahead and do that. Since everyone's kind of been sitting for a little bit.
That'd be great.
All right, let's go ahead and plan for a 15-minute recess. If I could have everyone back in the courtroom at 5 till 11. Okay, thank you. We'll be in a short recess. On the record on Paul Delgado, 22 CR 525. I do have all parties and counsel present in the courtroom. I do have Dr. Hatfield back in the witness stand. Are there any issues that we need to address before we begin with more testimony?
Not from the defense, Your Honor.
Great, thank you. Mr. Felderbisalo, whenever you're ready, you may continue. Dr. Hatfield, I'll just remind you that you're still under oath. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so just to kind of orient us after the recess, I was asking you about how you were kind of delving into Mr. Delgado's delusional beliefs in that 2025 second evaluation. So my question to you is did you try to challenge Mr. Delgado in that second evaluation in 2025 about some of his delusional beliefs?
Yes, that's typically my process, for that particular barrier is to kind of reframe things, rephrase things for individuals. I'll, suggest, well, you mentioned that you were diagnosed with this and you have been willing to take, antipsychotic medications. Maybe these things that you think or that you're saying actually were probably because you have, schizophrenia or something to that nature, and suggest things like that to really press them and to see how entrenched those beliefs are. And I did that with Mr. Delgado, and he didn't budge.
Okay. Did you ask him specifically kind of how confident he was in those beliefs?
Yes, I remember probably talking to him about percentage wise on things, that nature. I don't recall exactly what he said, but anytime I would press him and suggest that it was a product of a mental illness, he would tell me that, no, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is what's going to happen. This is what my plan is. And it was all intertwined with those beliefs.
Okay. And you had talked a little bit about like the possibility of flexibility on his beliefs. And it seems like there might be some flexibility on some beliefs, but not on others. Can you kind of take me through which ones he might be flexible on, which ones he might not?
Yeah, one of the ones that he wavered on was thinking that one of the victims in the case worked for the FBI. And he talked about this and told me, he thought now, after certain evidence has come to life, that he found out that that particular individual had a certain job, that he thought maybe that wasn't the case. And when I asked him about, okay, so does that change things, in terms of, okay, did you have a mental illness? Did you misidentify this? That was really the depth of the change. Otherwise, it was still, the Greeley Police Department set me up. They wanted me to commit this crime. I was given these, special bullets, et cetera. And so even though there's, a little wiggle room on that one, the other things were still held together. And interesting, later on, he would still reference the FBI. So I again, there's maybe a little bit of wiggle room on that particular one, but it didn't spill over into.
No. I'm not starting it up. Somebody has to take the lead. We all are gonna follow whoever wants to take the lead. We're all just gonna give you money, and then you open up this bond service. Can't go wrong. Can't.
The other beliefs.
Okay, so the other ones are still firmly held beliefs.
The Nazis, the sex trafficking, the Greeley Police Department, the setups, the surveillance, all that. Still entrenched. Yes.
And when he was talking about those things, can you were you asking him specific factual questions about kind of how he got involved in the police contact to begin with when he was talking about those delusions?
Yes. Typically with the evaluations, I'll ask three questions. The first is, tell me what you're charged with. The second question, I'll typically hedge a little bit and tell them, hey, I'm not accusing you of anything, but I want you to tell me what the police are saying you did and why you're arrested. And then the follow-up question for that is, now tell me what happened. Because I want to see, do they have the knowledge of what's in the police report? And then I want to see what their account is, because I want to see how well those match up, right? Not that I'm playing detective, but there are things that are, very notable differences between these two accounts.
Okay. And when we had talked about the true insight and him recognizing what other people believe, why is it not good enough for Mr. Delgado to kind of recognize that other people see his beliefs as delusional?
For his particular case, in other cases, maybe that would be enough, right? Maybe that would be enough. In his particular case, it's still impacting his decision-making for this case. It's impacting his defense strategy and how he wants to proceed and what he thinks is going to happen. And so just knowing that somebody doesn't believe me is not good enough for him to make rational choices, right? For me, this is about people always when I ran the RISE program, the patients there would ask me, "Why should I do anything you tell me to do? You just want to put me on medication so the DA can prosecute me and send me to jail." And I told them, I said, that's partly correct. Yes. I said, but for me, it's about fairness, right? I don't want to send a mentally ill patient into this level of a situation to make these decisions that are going to impact his life if he's not as good as he can get, right? If he's not as stable as he can be. But yes, I mean, eventually the goal is to get someone back to court. I mean, that is the goal for restoration, so that they can move on, so these things can be closed up. Everybody wants resolution, right? The victims' families, the courts, everybody wants to know what the outcome is. But for me, having that just little bit of, yeah, people don't believe me, that's not enough to give him the fair shot.
Okay. Thank you. So in that second evaluation, what was your opinion about his delusional beliefs and his competency?
He was incompetent due to those delusional beliefs that were still fixed.
Okay. All right. Now, that was not the last time you met with Mr. Delgado, was it?
Correct.
When was the next time you met with him?
Just a couple weeks ago on June 8th.
Okay. And what was the purpose of that meeting with him?
I was asked by you gentlemen to go back and see him because we had testimony coming up. I think things were probably discussed with like Dr. Torres's report and her testimony. And I was told specifically by you guys to keep an open mind that he could be competent. And that, if he was competent, great, we could move on with the sanity and mental condition evaluation. So consultation, screening, checking in, see if anything had changed, see if, information that he gave me this time would change my opinion. Again, I think everybody was hoping to move forward, and I threw a wrench into the engine here. So I apologize for that.
No need to apologize. I appreciate the work you're doing. Okay, so when you were going to meet with him, did you review any additional sources of information before you had done that you hadn't reviewed before the last time?
Just Dr. Torres's report
Okay.
from December.
So you had an idea of what her opinion was, and did you use that when you were kind of, as you said, keeping an open mind, trying to figure out whether he had been restored to competence?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, I've worked very closely with Dr. Torres and Dr. Mack throughout my career here in Colorado, and those are two people that I will call for consultations when I'm feeling stuck. And so, yes, I value their opinions greatly. And so being able to look through her report, understand where she was at, what she saw, and really try to see, again, am I the one that's in left field? And why is it that my opinion's different from people that I trust, from opinions that I trust? And so that was why I really wanted to go in and just really badger him about these beliefs, because if they're seeing what seems to be some flexibility on these things, I want to see that same flexibility. That's not what I got.
Okay. And we will definitely get into that in just a moment. But I just want to stick with Dr. Porter's report for just a moment. Did she kind of seem similar delusional beliefs as the previous doctors from Mr. Delgado?
Yeah, I mean, I think she noted things like the Nazis, the police being corrupt, him being immortal. Those were things that he noted. The battle with the guerrilla was also one. We're on page 2 of the addendum as well. But yeah, he also told her
Oops, I left my microphone on. Oh man, my microphone on the whole time. Did it create an echo? Because before, when I would leave my microphone on, chat would be, oh, there's an echo, there's an echo, there's an echo. So I think the prosecutor is a little upset that This doctor said that he was incompetent to proceed. And we're going to hear this doctor answer questions from the prosecutor in a moment. Then you'll see what I mean.
Said that he used the term paranoid delusions, but then followed it up with, I still believe them. So again, to me, it's one thing to be able to use the terms and say things, but the change that has to come in that mindset is different from being able to give that surface answer, you know? It reminds me of, like, my kids know the answer that I want when I ask them a question. That doesn't mean it's the truth or what they think, right? And so there's a different level there for me. But yes, he was certainly reporting, you know, very consistent beliefs across several years.
Okay. So he told her pretty similarly what she said to what he had told to every other evaluator going back to 2022?
Yeah, it all seems pretty, it all seems consistent. Yes.
All right. And what was her conclusion in that report?
She said that, you know, there was still some concern that he could, you know, I think they used interjecting delusional or irrelevant information, that was a possibility, but that he had sufficient insight that his beliefs were not based in reality, and spoke about strategies for proceeding with the case.
Okay. So this meeting with Mr. Delgado in June of 2026, this wasn't you redoing the whole competency evaluation, right?
No.
Can you kind of just take me through what you were doing?
I wanted to see if I got the same impression that Dr. Torres got, right? That I could ask him about all these beliefs and that he would sit down and tell me, this is a mental illness. I don't believe this anymore. I had a mental illness. I want to pursue this strategy, et cetera, and move on. And in which case, I mean, it would have been great. It might have kept me from being on the hot seat today. But that was not my experience.
And how did you start your conversation with him?
I told him, you know, kind of why I was there, that I was following up, and that I wanted to, you know, ask him about things that had really changed with regard to that. And, you know, I wanted to keep the initial part of that meeting very open-ended because I didn't want to, you know, start peppering him with questions about delusions and him just telling me, you know, this or that. And, you know, that meeting opened up with him starting to tell me that, you know, he no longer believed one of the victims in the case was an FBI agent. And so, you know, at that initial point, I was shocked, and I was like, oh, we're taking a turn here. And, you know, maybe things have really shifted. And so I wanted to continue to ask him what's changed, what's not changed, and really work through those. And then, you know, throughout the evaluation, there were times where, you know, I asked him, you know, what about this? What about that? But with the exception of that first piece that I really thought was going to turn the corner, everything else remained.
Okay. And you say everything else.
We might wish there's no volume, but we hear it all.
And I know we've kind of gone over the laundry list before, but I just want to make sure it's clear. It's the exact same kind of delusion. Can you kind of walk me through the same beliefs that he was experiencing?
Yes. He is still, even though the FBI may not be a factor in his mind now, he still firmly believes that the bad Nazi part of his family orchestrated the Greeley Police Department to set him up to commit a crime so that they could get him in jail. He believes that he was given magic bullets, which he also discussed in reference to the case, that he did not believe bullets involved in the case were real. He made statements to me that he felt the victims in the case are actually still alive and that they're hiding somewhere. When I pressed him on the things, he talked about the time traveling was still an issue. He talked about still being involved in this time loop. He told me that he has been waiting for the good side of the family to basically just go to the prosecutors, have them drop the charges, and let him out of jail. And that's happened before in other time loops, and that was a reasonable expectation for him to get. He said the longer he sits, the more he worries that maybe they're not coming. And so he needs to pursue what he feels is the best opportunity to get out of jail at some point, which in his opinion was to go along with what his attorneys told him, which was that he needed to plead NGRI, and that would give him the best opportunity in his mind to reconnect with the Nazi family so that he could be put in the position of power.
Okay. You covered a lot of ground there. I appreciate that. Did he specifically say that he was basing his defense strategies and his information on those delusional beliefs?
Yes, he said that the reason he's going with the NGRI was not because he believes this is not reality, but that this gave him the best chance to see the light of day again so he could reconnect with the family.
Okay. And I know you talked about challenging his beliefs in the evaluation in 2025. Did you do that again in this 2026?
I did, especially in light of, the wavering on the FBI piece, and with the exception of him saying that he now does not believe one of the victims was an FBI agent. That was the only thing that changed. Everything else was still very delusional.
Did you ask him about why he thought that one thing might not be true, but the other things were true?
Yeah, when I asked him about that, he said essentially the justification he gave me was that at some point during, I don't know if it was in court here or in meetings with attorneys, he said something came out in the discovery. He learned the individual worked at like a pet store, and he said that made him question whether or not they were actually working for the FBI. But he still firmly believed that he was being set up, and he still firmly believed that he was in fear for his life.
Okay. And I don't, forgive me if you already said this, I don't believe that you did, but did you ask him what would he do if he were to be found sane at a criminal trial?
Yeah, that was something I posed to him because he was, very adamant that, hey, this is what the attorneys told me to do. And I said, so hypothetically, let's say you get the evaluation for NGRI and the opinions come back that you're sane. What do you do now? And he told me it would be his desire at that point to testify about these beliefs in court as part of his defense.
And I know you touched on this belief a little bit, but I think this one deserves a little bit more time. When he was telling you about the time loop and kind of how he's done this before, how do you think that specific delusion impacted his kind of decision making in the case?
Again, I am taking what I hope is a logical approach to examining something that doesn't seem based in reality. And the interpretation I make off that is I can keep trying different things to close this time loop or to start it over. And that if this strategy in my brain didn't work out last time, I'm just going to try this next strategy. But ultimately, every strategy is to get back to this good Nazi family and get placed in this position of power. And that, this particular family, has worldly powers, over, nations and things like this. So it's not just hey, I'm the patriarch of the family. It's a Hitler level power. Is the end goal. But yes, to me, the time loop piece just factors into, any one time loop that I'm in is not going to matter that much until I get the one that gives me my desired outcome. And so I may pick and choose and play around with my decisions. And so that also causes concern for decision making.
Okay. And so how do you think that affects kind of his understanding of the possible consequences of his charges here?
I don't think he understands the severity of the consequence, right? So, let's take the example of, let's say in this particular time loop, he pleads guilty, he gets life in prison, and he, in our reality, he spends the rest of his life in prison when he thinks at some point he's just going to die and reset. That to me is not an understanding of the severity. When you think that you're immortal and you can't be killed because you're just going to reset, spending this life in prison isn't going to be as impactful as knowing that's your one and only life. And so for me, that impairs his ability to understand really the severity of what he is facing. And when he can't understand the
I'm sorry, V. I tried to distract everybody from knowing it was you with the bald head, but it seems to have disappeared.
severity, he's not making rational decisions about how to best serve himself in this position.
Okay.
Sounds like he's being charged with murder, multiple victims.
So is it fair to say that these overarching beliefs are kind of steering his decision making in the case?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point in time, did you still believe he was incompetent to proceed?
Yes. Yes.
Now, I know we've kind of talked about how this case has progressed with you, but just to kind of wrap it up, how long have you been working on this case?
Since 2023.
Okay, so it's been several years.
Correct.
Is it fair to say that you've been working on this case longer than the other evaluators that have kind of been hired in for evaluations here?
I think because of the nature of my position as a defense expert, yes, I've had more access to him and seen him at various points of times.
And how many times have you met with him? Do you remember?
At least 5, maybe more, but I think
Okay.
5. 3 for the first report. I think there was at least 1, 2 for these. Yeah, so 5 maybe.
And do you think that kind of your experience here with the long relationship, the many meetings, how does that kind of impact your ability to do or give an opinion on his competency, do an evaluation?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Do you think it's helpful to have that long relationship with someone that you're doing a competency evaluation for?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's helpful. I don't know that it's necessary as long as you know kind of which buttons to push or, which questions to ask. Yeah, but again, more information, more data points, I think is always helpful.
Do you think it might affect how Mr. Delgado answered your questions? The familiarity with you?
I can't speak for the other evaluators. I have really good rapport with Mr. Delgado. Again, we've always had very pleasant interactions. And so I think that level of rapport is important for someone to trust you and open up and tell you what they believe to be the truth is. So in that respect, yes, I think it's helpful.
Okay. And do you think there might be any risk of knowing someone that long and doing a lot of meetings with them when you're trying to make that objective opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we can get overly invested in a case or we can get overly invested in an opinion. Again, I said this earlier, I'm not perfect. I'm, subject to bias like everybody else. That's why, I would really take to heart the other evaluators' opinions. That's why I really pressed him, harder than I typically do other cases in terms of these delusions and for flexibility. Quite frankly, I think that I would have been happy to have been able to move on with this case and progress to other areas other than competency, as I imagine a lot of other folks would be too. So,
Okay.
Again, for me, it just came down to this ethical issue of, could we determine something about mental state? Probably. Is it the right thing to do? And is that really going by the rules of due process? And to me, ethically, I don't think that's the case. So,
Okay. And give me 1 second.
do you mind if I stand up just for a second?
Oh, no, go ahead. Sitting is rough.
Yeah, it was like, an hour plus drive up here in the car and then more time here. So. Back is not going to be doing well today.
Sorry, Dr. Hatfield. I just a couple more. When I was first asking you about kind of your training and how you keep up with statutes and case law, was there any cases that you looked at during this process when evaluating his competency?
Yeah, there was a case, I think it's People v. Mondragon for Colorado, but it essentially touches on, if delusions are interfering with how someone's making their choices about, decisions to make, like testifying and things, that it was decided that would be a sign of incompetence. Okay, that was my interpretation of the case. So
Right. In your opinion, that's relevant to this one because
I think his delusions are impacting how he wants to do everything. It's impacting the decisions he's making. And again, I've probably said this on a phone call or something, but to me, it's not necessarily about making the correct decision. It's about what are the reasoning for making that decision, right? And so I think about, being in like fourth grade math class, right? Your teacher didn't just ask you for the answer. She wanted you to show your work. And so for me, I wanted Mr. Delgado to show his work on why he's making the decisions he's doing. And it's not the answer that's wrong. It's the work and how he's getting to that point that's wrong.
Gotcha. No, I think that's really helpful. Just last thing, have you ever spoken to the district attorney's office about this case?
Yes, I spoke to Ms. Akers on Friday of last week.
Okay. And was defense counsel present for that at all?
No.
Okay. And have you been willing to talk with them throughout this whole process?
Yeah, I'm always willing. I told Ms. Akers on Friday, I think that this is transparent. I want it to be transparent. It's my opinion. That's all it is. It's an opinion. You guys have 4 or 5 other doctors to weigh their opinions as well. I'll tell you what my opinion is, but ultimately it's up to the court to decide. You got to look at all the opinions. You got to look at all the doctors and figure out what sounds like the most accurate decision. Because at the end of the day, again, I think we all want closure on a topic, and so we just want to make sure that we get there the right way. That's where I think that's where the wrench came from. So
okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Those are my questions
I prefer skipping closure in all instances.
at this time.
Thank you. Mr. McHugh or Ms. Akers, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning.
good morning.
Still morning.
Yes, I feel like it's almost nap time. So
No, we're definitely approaching my nap time. Thanks for being here. I do have some questions, as you might have guessed.
of course.
I want to first start off by just asking you a little more about how you got involved in this case. Was this a part of your private contract business or through something else?
Through the private practice, correct.
And how long have you been with the private practice?
I didn't do any private work between 2016 and 2019, so probably around 2019, halfway through, and since then, I've been taking private cases since I left the state.
How many private cases have you taken?
Probably hundreds. I couldn't give you an accurate number.
How many times have you testified as an expert in those private cases?
In private cases, I have a list of all my testimony, which is state cases as well, which is over 40 at this point.
Okay.
I'm sorry, over how many?
Over 40.
Thank you. Can you pull that microphone closer to the whole?
Yeah, of course. Sorry.
Thank you.
Could you estimate of those, did you do more for the state, both in your 2015 to 2019 timeframe and in the RISE program, and then under your state contract, or more in the private?
I mean, I think because of how many cases I would say, I would like to say they're split halfway, but I couldn't give you an accurate answer.
Okay.
I still do contract work for the state. And so testimony that I'm giving currently still is either private or state. So I just can't give you an accurate.
Yeah, fair enough. And I didn't ask you that in advance, so wouldn't expect to have that in front of you. I do want to talk to you a little bit, though, about how many times have you been asked to do a second evaluation with the court appointing you to do that second evaluation?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot, yeah.
And how many of those times have you done that evaluation without receiving discovery from the prosecution?
Pretty frequently, I will get and it depends on the county too. For example, Larimer County is terrific with sending me directly from the DA. They order it through the judge. A lot of other counties and stuff, it's not uncommon for me just to get what the defense sends me.
So even though statutorily it's required as soon as the court appoints that second evaluator, that we have 24 hours to get that discovery.
Yeah, there's certainly been times where I probably haven't received stuff. I don't know about Weld County specifically, but there are times where I'm relying on just what the defense has sent me.
Were you ever appointed by the court in this case?
No, I don't think so. No.
So is that typical for you, or is this unique?
That I'm not appointed by the court?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's unique. It depends on the nature of the case.
Court ordered second evaluation.
Well, a court-ordered second evaluation would be through the court, but no, I get asked frequently from defense counsel, public defender's office,
Okay.
to see people through their office, so it's privately retained through them.
Gotcha. But in this case, defense challenged the evaluation of Dr. Torres and was to identify a doctor, correct? Per the statute, which you said you're familiar with.
Yes.
And then the court would order that doctor and the people would be required to provide discovery, correct?
I assume so.
Okay. In this case, did you ever reach out and ask for discovery?
Not from the DA's office, no.
Why not?
I had discovery documents from the other times I've worked the case, and it didn't cross my mind.
How much discovery did you have? Did you have 1,200 pages and hours of video?
I had a lot, but probably not all of it.
But you testified earlier that it's important that you have as much information as possible. And in fact, the statute anticipates that as much information as possible is both appropriate and necessary, which is why we have that, right?
Sure.
And yet you never reached out and asked for the rest of the discovery.
Again, I had documents that I reviewed, and it didn't cross my mind. So that's a slip up on my part.
Do you think it would have been helpful to have the rest of that information?
It could be, yes.
Okay. And when you worked for the state, when you reviewed defendants for competency, you did that, correct?
Yes.
In the state hospital? What was the first thing you'd do?
Reach out
To who?
to attorneys on both sides.
Okay, so prior to writing a report.
When I get assigned with my with my contract that I do, not my private work. Yes, that is the process for the state hospital. I get assigned a case. I send emails out to the DA and the assigned public defenders.
Okay, but in this case, not only did you not get discovery from the people, so you don't have all of the discovery in the case, but you also never reached out to us, correct?
I did not reach out until Friday was the first time I had a conversation with you guys.
Right, but you never asked for any information from us.
No.
Okay. I want to go back to the inception of your involvement in this case. It was 2022, correct?
Yes. Well, the interview is 2022. Yes, November.
And so presumably you were hired before that, before you did the interview.
Yes, they had reached out to me to ask me to do the interview,
What were you hired for?
to do a consultation.
Okay, what's a consultation?
So a consultation is essentially interviewing an individual, helping the defense determine if there is a mental disorder that might be present, and also to potentially inform them if it is something they need to keep their eye on in terms of competency or raising mental state.
Okay, and so when you were hired for a consultation, was there a discussion on what the consultation would entail? As in what they were looking for, what their concerns were?
Those are the conversations usually.
Okay, and what were the concerns?
The concerns were because of the nature of the alleged crime, they were concerned about his mental health and his mental well-being.
Okay, and I recognize, mental health and mental well-being is going to be a common thread throughout this, but there's a difference between a consultation for competency and NGRI or mental defect defense, correct?
The consultation could be for both, right? Because if I'm looking at potentially laying groundwork for a mental state defense, as part of that, if there seems to be competency issues that need to be raised, those are concerns I'm going to express to the attorneys, and then they're going to be obligated to raise those issues.
What do you mean when you say when you're laying the groundwork for a mental defense? That almost sounds like you're that you're working in conjunction to support a mental defect defense.
I'm working to help outline if I think there's one that should be there, right? Is I'm talking about the case with the client. I'm getting observations of the client, hopefully close in time to the offense, so that we have some sort of understanding of what they're looking like at this time. If it's a relevant issue that they're having mental illness, mental symptoms of mental illness during this time, then that's a good piece of data to have, right, for both competency and for mental state. That's what I meant by that comment.
Okay. And so when they approached you, they didn't ask you to do just straight up a competency evaluation or an NGRI evaluation. Is that correct?
It was not, hey, do an evaluation. It was, we need a consultation. We want you to examine our client, tell us what's there, tell us what your understanding is, and give us any recommendations for how this case might look.
Okay. What type of recommendations are you talking about?
Whether or not they need to raise competency, whether or not there seems to be a reasonable suspicion that mental state evaluation might be needed at some point down the road.
Okay. And when you do those consultations, do you write a report?
If I'm asked to write a report, I write a report.
Were you asked to write a report in this case?
I was asked to interview him twice, and then when I told them I had competency concerns, they asked me to write a report, yes.
Okay. And so you didn't write any report prior to what you labeled as a competency evaluation?
Correct. I didn't write a report because I wasn't asked to.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure because
Oh, I
you
got
had
you.
2 meetings with him and it's a consultation, and clearly your later consultation states across the top that it's an evaluation, not a competency evaluation. Is that correct?
The third one, yes. It's an addendum. It's an addition to.
The second and the third. The first one says competency evaluation. The second one says sanity and mental condition evaluation. And the third one says addendum to that.
Correct.
Okay. So there's a difference in those, which is why I'm asking.
Yeah, the titles on the evaluations are what I was asked to do.
Okay. And so you weren't asked to write any report for the initial consultation after you raised competency, then you were asked to write a competency evaluation.
Yeah, I wasn't told to write a consultation note specifically detailing those first 2 interviews, but those first 2 interviews were used for to inform the competency question.
Okay. Thank you. I want to talk to you a little more about, and I'm going to jump back. I apologize. I'm going to try to go through the order of questions in a similar pattern to the way that Mr. Vasallo did, which ultimately, because I'll have additional questions, I'm going to jump around a little. If I confuse you with my questions, please just let me know.
Sure.
You said that you have a training this Wednesday. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. I have to double check my calendar, but yes, I think so.
Who is that training with?
It's with the state hospital.
Okay. And what is that for?
It's Senate bill. I forget the number, but it has to do with individuals who are, it just passed within a couple of months, I think, but individuals who are determined to be permanently incompetent to proceed. And then what are the mechanisms for treating them or kind of keeping them out of trouble, so to speak, right?
Gotcha. I just wanted clarification because when you were talking about it, I wanted to make sure I understood what the training was. You said that you met with him at least 5 times. Is that accurate?
Yes, looking at my documents here where I list the interviews, those are the times I met with him.
You didn't say only 5 times. You said at least 5 times, and you.
That was my estimate without looking at my report here. Correct.
Now you're confident it was just 5 times?
I don't recall meeting with him any other time other than what's listed on here, which would be those times.
Thank you. And you said part of your job and part of what you're doing is trying to get an account of the circumstances that are sort of taking place. Is that correct?
Circumstances taking place regarding.
For the defendant, for the crime, for the mental status at the time.
Yes, that could be part of it. Yes.
Okay. And you said you need an account that is based in reality, correct?
Correct.
And so does that mean that you were the one who is determining what is reality?
From my clinical opinion, it's my opinion of what is grossly delusional or seems to be related to a psychotic thought process versus something that sounds more plausible.
Okay, so where do you draw that line and how do you research it?
Well, a lot of it's going to have to do with looking at discovery documents, what's going on, what's alleged in the police report. I mean, there are clearly things that, like I mentioned earlier, sex trafficking ring, that's certainly a plausible thing that could be happening somewhere in society. I think when we get to the point of talking about time traveling Nazis, that becomes a bit more bizarre and outlandish.
Sure, that makes sense to me. So you decide if it could be plausible. What do you do when you decide something could be plausible? How do you verify? What do you do?
Well, I mean, again, it depends on the nature of the case and what I'm verifying or attempting to verify.
Okay. In this case, did you verify anything?
With the sex trafficking ring?
Sure, sex trafficking. Let's do that one.
No, I didn't verify that. I have no reason to believe based on any discovery that there was anything found for that, but
Well, but you don't have discovery.
I don't have all of it. You're correct.
I mean,
Again, I'm conceding it's a possibility that that's something that exists.
did you at least look into Weld County and the number of sexual assault prosecutions in Weld County?
I did not.
Okay, so you didn't do any research to verify that at all?
I did not do any independent research to find a sex trafficking ring in Mr. Delgado's neighborhood, correct?
Or even look for sex trafficking proliferation in Weld
That
County?
is not, yes, that's not in the scope.
How about police corruption? Did you do anything to investigate that?
I did not.
What about when Mr. Delgado specifically told you that it was a firmly held belief that the Greeley Police Department is corrupt because he had evidence that the chief of police had done illegal things?
I asked him what that evidence was, and he told me that he had witnessed it himself.
Okay.
That's not something I can verify whether it happened or not.
What was it?
He didn't tell me exactly what it was, but he told me that he witnessed the police officer doing something nefarious, the police chief, letting people off of crimes, giving people out of jail free cards or something, I believe is what he told me.
So he said those things.
If I recall correctly, yes, he said something about letting people off, letting people go, and used the term get out of jail free card.
Is that something that you would have included in your notes?
It should be included in the notes at some point.
Because if I'm not mistaken, your notes say he specifically said he has witnessed the police chief do illegal things, and then there's no follow-up question.
It depends on which interview it was from.
Well, okay, then let's back up and talk about that. How many times did he say that?
I couldn't give you an estimate.
Okay, so he may have said that he personally witnessed the police chief doing illegal things more than once?
It's possible he did. I remember the last time that I talked to him, I believe, is when he mentioned the issue about the get out of jail free cards.
Okay, but you didn't include that in your notes?
I don't think it's in the report, that quote, but it's probably in some of my notes somewhere.
Okay, and you supplied us with notes on Friday from your October interview, correct?
I was asked to give you guys the notes from the October interview. Yes, I gave this to you.
Well, just the October where you asked for any and all notes that you had available from your meetings.
On the conversation that I had, my understanding was for the notes for that report.
Okay.
I got an email from you yesterday at noon asking for the other interview notes, which I'm happy to give to you. I did not have time yesterday or today, this morning, to get those over to you.
Okay, yet on Friday you included some notes from previous meetings, just not the whole breakdown.
I gave the interview note for the report that we were discussing on Friday.
Okay, and I acknowledge, I emailed you yesterday after reviewing your notes from Friday over the weekend. Can you provide those to us after today's hearing?
I'm certainly happy to, yes.
Wonderful, thank you. So back to the police chief, you didn't look into, did you at least look for any other corruption in Weld County? Have there been any officers prosecuted for corruption?
I'm sure there have been. I did not look into it.
Okay. Did you decide that that was an irrational belief, or?
I decided that that is something that could be potentially based in reality, and it could also be a product of a delusional belief. Taken in totality with the rest of his reported belief system, I have a hard time believing that that's relevant to his case, whether he believes it or not, and that that's going to be something that he's going to use to defend himself and prove.
Well, but how is that not relevant to his case? Because when you talk to him later, you say, okay, well, all of these things are connected to your case because of the Nazis. And I believe you even said, it sounds like the Nazis are pulling strings for you. Is that correct?
That is what he told me, yes.
Okay, that's what you said.
See, I told you he's upset. He's upset that this doctor said he was incompetent.
You said, Mr.
he was
Delgado, it sounds like what you're telling me
that
is
they
the
were playing
Nazis are pulling
puppet
strings.
master. Yes, that
Okay.
is what I told him.
And so that was your question to him.
Correct.
Okay. Did you record these interviews with him?
No,
Just through notes?
correct.
Now, we've talked about discovery. You interviewed the defendant 5 times. Did you you spoke with defense counsel. How many times did you speak with defense counsel?
I couldn't tell you. It's been over the course of several years. There's been emails exchanged and that sort of thing. So I couldn't give you a number. A lot.
Did you rely on those emails for your basis and opinion?
No. I mean, I reviewed some of them, but I don't think there was anything relevant to the competency piece. They were more scheduling and that sort of thing.
Okay. Did they communicate concerns about mental health issues and their observations?
I would have to go back and look at all those emails and see exactly what's in them.
Okay. In your conversations, did you take notes?
Yes,
Did
most
you
of my notes.
maintain those notes?
My notes are typically typed into the reports if I don't have a note sheet on it.
Okay. After the hearing today, can we get copies of those notes as well?
I'm happy to send you everything that I have on the case.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to eliminate questions that I believe Mr. Vasallo came back to that no longer are questions. So if I can have a minute as I go through this. You indicated, let me ask you, what is a delusion?
A delusion is a fixed belief that people hold despite any evidence to the contrary. It's something that's not based in reality.
Is it isolated to an individual? In other words, if lots of people believe something, is it no longer a delusion?
If lots of people believe it, then it is what we would refer to as a culturally accepted belief.
Okay. So
It would
for
not be in the realm
example,
of a delusion.
multiple deities is a culturally accepted belief.
Religion, things of that nature, yes.
Okay. And so a delusion is just a single individual believing
You
or
can,
small group.
yes, I mean, you can have more than one individual having a delusion, but
Okay.
yes, typically it is what we're talking about an individual.
Okay. And so what is cognitive distortion?
Cognitive distortion would just be when you have a distorted view of the world, right? Or a distorted view of an action that's not necessarily illogical or not realistic.
Okay. So like believing that Greeley police may be corrupt could be cognitive.
I think that could be a cognitive distortion. It could also be based in reality if they are in fact corrupt.
Okay. Believing that you are related to Hitler could be cognitive distortion.
Yeah, I mean, yes, could be.
Well, you're reluctant to say it could be.
Well, I don't have his lineage. I don't have an ancestry.com report.
So it's either true or it could be cognitive distortion.
It could be true. It could be a delusion. It could be some sort of distortion of his heritage.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is he thinks he's still communicating with Adolf Hitler. And that to me is clearly delusional in nature.
Okay. What about the existence of Nazis? Where does that fall?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about neo-Nazis and things like that, that's still around. I'm sure there's probably some folks who still, have Nazi paraphernalia and claim to be Nazis. I don't know that they have time travel and magic bullets, but I'm sure there are still people that would identify as Nazis.
Sure. They may not have time travel and magic bullets, but you agree that there are people who identify as Nazis currently today.
I'm sure there are.
Did you ask Mr. Delgado what his definition of a Nazi was?
When he started mentioning Hitler, no, I think I probably just made assumptions.
Okay. What about when he talked about the correctional officers with tattoos, and that was a clear indication that they were Nazis? Did you dive into that any further?
Well, I asked him what he thought was happening, and he told me that he thought they were poisoning his food.
Right, but what did he say before that? Why did he say that he thought they were Nazis?
He said that they had tattoos that he associated with Nazis, but
Okay.
I didn't get him to describe what those tattoos were.
Okay, but he did describe them as lightning bolts, and I believe your notes said SS.
Possibly.
Okay.
I don't recall what he told me, but I do remember him saying they had
But that,
Nazi type tattoos.
okay, and so that part again, time travel, sure. Delusion. Existence of Nazis, you agree, not a delusion.
Again, the fact of, is there a possibility that these things exist in the outside world versus are these things that are relevant to the case and are they real and alive in the way that he's describing them? I think to me are two different questions in my mind, right? Having Nazis that are essentially, some sort of Illuminati type organization that are pulling the strings for the FBI and the Greeley Police Department. Again, can I say that that is not real? 100%? No. Can I say it's not likely? I think I can confidently say it's not likely.
When you first spoke with him, I believe your testimony today was no insight, we were aiming to go NGRI in your first interaction. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, in the first meeting with him?
Yeah.
In the first meeting with, yes, I don't think he had insight. I don't think that NGRI was the first thing that was coming to mind. I mean, competency is the issue at that point, right? We got to get competency squared away before we can move on to the mental state piece.
Your first meeting was for competency?
The first meeting was for a consultation, which encompasses competency, mental health diagnosis, potential defense strategies down the road. It's a very broad consultation.
Okay. And when you first met with him, Mr. Vassallo went with you, correct?
On one of those meetings, yes, Mr. Vassallo was with me.
Introduced you?
Introduced me, did what I refer to as a warm handoff.
Okay. A warm handoff.
It's where you introduce me to a client, say, hey, this person, we've retained him from the defense. We want you to talk to him. We want you to be upfront and honest, and we want you to answer his questions.
Okay. What'd you talk about that first time?
Without looking, my recollection would be we talked about background information and talked about the case
Okay.
and what got him to jail.
Did you talk about any legal proceeding or legal options?
I don't recall if we talked about defense strategy or not. I know that I did not go into depth about, to the detail of how many people are on a jury or, the definition of a plea bargain. That was probably not covered in that first interview.
Or the second interview?
Or the second,
cut
correct.
short because he wanted to get back to his food, correct?
Yeah.
How do you think that he received you when you first met him with Mr. Vassallo?
As I've mentioned before, we've always had pretty decent rapport. I've never had any issues with him being rude or anything to that effect.
Okay. But willing to talk to you, felt like you were one of the team?
Possibly. I would have to ask Mr. Delgado how he received me.
Okay. Versus he'd never told you no. Again, the second time you met with him for 10 minutes and he said he wanted to get back to the food that he had just met, correct?
Yes,
And that was probably the shortest of your meetings with him?
correct.
And even with that, it wasn't, I don't want to speak with you, correct?
It wasn't rude, correct.
It was just, look, I'm hungry and I want to eat, so
He had other
come back another
priorities.
time. Yeah, okay. And so at no point did he ever treat you in a way that felt like he didn't want to speak with you?
That is not the impression that I've gotten or how I felt around him now.
Okay. Did you ever speak with him about mental condition defenses and NGRI?
Yeah, we've talked about it because he has been wanting to pursue it.
Okay. Did you explain to him what those are, how they work?
I've probably provided him education on those at some point, yes.
What's the education you would provide to someone on that?
I would tell them that, typically I will ask somebody if they know what NGRI is.
Okay.
If they give me a definition, great. If not, I tell them, it's someone has a mental illness at the time of the crime. They don't know right from wrong. Those are the general sort of input about that defense.
Okay. Did you talk about the consequences of NGRI?
Yes, we talk about, I think what the typical restoration answer is a day to life at the state hospital.
Okay. And so when do you think you talked to him the first time about NGRI?
I would have to look at those interview notes to tell you exactly.
And you don't have access to them here today?
I don't, it's on my computer at home.
Okay. Switch back. The only issue that you truly, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What is the issue that you believe makes Mr. Delgado incompetent?
Delusions.
Okay. And now I want to sort of get a clearer answer on that. Is it delusions in his ability to make decisions in the case?
It's how those delusions are impairing his ability to assist his counsels, right? To assist his attorneys, to make rational decisions and to understand the severity of what's going on in his case.
Okay.
So those delusions are directly, in my opinion, impacting those things.
Thank you. And that's why I wanted to make sure that you answered it rather than me leading with that question. You are not saying that you have concerns that he doesn't know what my role as the prosecutor is.
I have no concerns about that, correct?
You're not saying that he has any misbelief about what the judge's role is.
No, the only thing that he's mentioned is there's a potential, he hasn't expressed this for a specific individual, but a potential that someone like perhaps on the jury could somehow be related to these Nazis.
Okay. But I mean, if that were the only thing that he raised, would you be finding him incompetent today?
Well, it's
Someone on the jury may have a negative viewpoint.
Yeah, I'm not finding anyone incompetent. I'm giving an opinion. The finding is not my job. If that directly related to his decision to rather take a plea bargain than go to trial because he was concerned that that jury member was going to do something nefarious and convict him, then yes, I would have concerns about his competency at that point. It depends on how it all gets connected to his decision making.
Okay, so an individual who was concerned that a juror member may dislike him, you would render opinion of incompetent.
No, a defendant who believes that a jury member is planted by a nefarious world-leading organization and has access to do powerful things and influence people, that would make me reticent to say that he's competent. The fact of having just a regular basic person dislike somebody, no.
Okay, so there's no concern about him having a rational understanding of the court proceedings then?
I'm not concerned about his ability to understand how court works.
Okay.
Correct.
So on the November 2025 evaluation on page 15, when you said, overall, there is ample evidence to suggest that these firmly held delusional beliefs would interfere with him having a rational understanding of the court proceedings, that part should be stricken.
It depends on how we look at the term proceedings. If we look at him proceeding with his case, then yes, I think it's interfering with how he wants to proceed in his case. If we're talking about what I think of typically as like factual procedural stuff, then no, I don't think he has an issue with what a judge does and how a plea bargain works and how a trial works. I don't think they're interfering with his understanding of how a trial would work for someone else, or how the courtroom would work for another defendant. I think they are specific to Mr. Delgado's situation and how these beliefs about all these things are going to interfere with his understanding of how it's going to play out.
Okay. You, in this report, titled it Sanity and Mental Condition Evaluation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, meaning that you're essentially doing this interview in preparation for consultation on sanity and mental health
It
evaluation.
wasn't a preparation, it was a sanity and mental condition evaluation. My goal and my mindset going into that meeting was to evaluate him related to mental condition, mental state at the time of the crime.
Did he know that?
Yes.
Okay. You talked about in your report the fact that Mr. Delgado is an individual who can figure out what each person wants to hear and say that to that person. Is that correct?
I said I have concern that he's learned what not to say to certain people.
Okay.
Yes.
But you're in this really unique situation, right?
I don't know how unique it is. I mean, there's plenty of people who do my job.
Well, fair, but you're in the unique position of being someone who had a warm handoff from his attorney, the person who's in court to defend him, right? And after that, you are writing opinions on both competency, which could prevent him from moving forward in the court case, correct?
Potentially, yes.
And also telling him that you're meeting him about his defense strategy, NGRI or mental condition defense, correct?
I'm telling him that we're doing an evaluation for that.
Right. But you've already talked to him about what NGRI means and the fact that it could be as little as one day in the state hospital.
That's a standard education point that we do in competency evaluations across the board.
Correct. But this isn't a competency evaluation. You are a trusted advisor, someone who has met him through his attorney,
The,
who is here to work on his mental condition defense.
I mentioned this earlier, as part of any sanity or mental condition evaluation, we do a competency evaluation as part of that evaluation. So in the notification, when I'm talking to him about the purpose, I'm telling him we are going to talk about competency related stuff. We're going to look through that issue again, but the focus at the
JK, you're right. You're not wrong. You're right. But I don't think the defense attorney really has to do anything. This is an easy W for him.
the end of the evaluation is to discuss the mental state at the time of the alleged offense.
Absolutely. Totally agree and understand that. What I'm saying is you previously authored a report about competency.
Yes,
Correct.
I did. Yes.
And you're now meeting with him. And yes, you're acknowledging competency is going to be a part of this. But you're meeting with him under the guise of, let's work on the mental condition, correct?
I wouldn't say I'm meeting with him under any guise. It is my ethical duty to explain to him what I'm going to talk to him about.
Right, but don't you think he knows that at this point in the proceeding, we're now moving on to, as you've stated numerous times in your notes and your reports, his defense of NGRI?
That was the point of the evaluation. Yes.
Right.
But did I also, I'm confused if you're asking me if I did not tell him that we were doing competency.
Oh, no, sorry if I'm being unclear.
So I explained to him with the notification, we're doing competency. I check with him to understand and reassess his understanding of what we're doing. I move forward.
Absolutely.
I don't make a call on sanity or mental condition and whether or not I'm going to give an opinion on that issue until I'm clear on competency.
Absolutely. My point is, you talk about, you think he's learned what to not say to individuals. Don't you think that he's also learned that you are the person who is helping to write his mental condition defense?
Does he know that I'm there for that purpose? Yes, he knows I'm there for that purpose.
And so if he is able to withhold information from other individuals, as you note numerous times, is he also able to give you the answers that best fit his impaired mental condition?
Is he able to give me answers that he's not giving other people? If he decided to do that, yes, that's his decision on how he's behaving.
Well, that's your own statement, is that you believe he's giving answers to different people.
I believe that he is telling people that I'm moving forward with this defense strategy because people don't believe what I'm saying is real, and this is my option. And he's able to tell people that, and it's masquerading as insight when you dig and you pull the threads on why he's doing that, there's not a logical reason for him to do it. Again, he is giving people the right answer, but he's not doing the work in a rational way to get to that answer.
But I'm specifically talking about his conversations with you. Because if he's found competent by this court, isn't the information that he gave you absolutely relevant to his NGRI plea?
Yes, and that's the same information that he's been talking about since his arrest and even before.
Right. And so when he's talking about competency, right, we've got this competency box and we've got this NGRI box, right? Two separate boxes.
Okay.
Okay. You are the person who has to fit into both of those boxes, right? You're the only person who has to fit into both of those boxes.
I don't know that I follow what you're.
In other words,
You know, I don't understand this line of questioning either. I don't know what the boxes mean. This is confusing me.
So, Mr. McHugh, I'm going to let you rephrase your question because I think it is a little bit confusing, and then let's wrap it up, at least for the noon hour.
Of course.
Great, thank you.
So when he speaks with these other doctors, it's very clearly about competency, right?
If that's what they notified him and that was the purpose of the evaluation, yes, I hope so.
That's one thing that you have reviewed, their reports.
Correct.
Would you agree that that's what they met with him about?
Those were the purposes for those evaluations, yes,
Okay.
competency.
So do you have any reason to believe that he did not think he was meeting with them for any reason besides that competency box?
I don't know what he was thinking during those meetings. I didn't meet with him, but if he was told it was for competency, then I would hope that he understood those were for competency.
Okay. And you are the only person that he has met with for NGRI, correct?
That I know of, yes.
Okay. But you also met with him And that's why I said that other box for competency.
Correct.
So you are unique in that your rapport with him, as you described it, goes both to the first interactions with him where you did a competency evaluation,
Okay.
and to the most recent interactions with him that goes to NGRI.
Am I the only one that did both types of evaluations or attempted to do both types? Yes.
Okay. And you're the only one who had a handoff from his attorneys as a part of the defense team.
That I know of, yes. I don't know if that was offered to other defense or other experts.
I'll quit on that question for the lunch hour, Your Honor.
Thanks. All right, we're going to go ahead and break for the noon hour. If I could have everyone back at 1:30. We can get started or continue with the cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The court will be in recess.
Hoof. Okay. 8 hours ago, I promised you I'd give you crazy this morning, and there, I did it. I gave you crazy. So the judge is gonna decide whether he's competent or not. The prosecutor did not say anything at all in those weird questions that he asked to show that he is indeed competent. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming out today. I appreciate it. It's Monday, so be nice to everybody. No one wants to be at work today, so be extra, extra, extra nice. And that's just a smile. A smile goes a long way. I will see you all again very soon. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye, guys.
Well, I thought I'd write a happy song. I found a chat room where I belong. You don't know how much it means to me. With such a groove, I'm less lonely. Oh, Kathy's the creator, she's leading the way. At court vibes, we laugh and we stay. Her smile shines bright, she's got that grace. Come join the fun, it's a welcome and play. I can count on distraction from my pain, 'cause this creator takes you there and back again. Kathy is the heart here, always in stride. Her work is hard, but her joy she can't hide. Oh, Kathy's the creator, she's leading the way. At court vibes, we laugh and we stay. Her style is classy, she's always top shelf. Don't take my word, come and see for yourself. Her cases are new with a twist or two. I really like them, I believe you will too. A little lifeline passed along in rhyme. Why don't you join us? It's a guarantee.